Welcome to Detroit Lions News Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Chap, along with my guest that I have on the program today. It's Walter Stringer from the Lions Avenue podcast. And look, Walt does a hell of a good deep dive into the draft and everything, but we got to talk about the playoffs because I've seen how fired up Walt was yesterday about this whole LA Lakers, Detroit Pistons, like kind of
Yeah.
throwback to the old days where it was just like constant shade being thrown towards the Lions. I mean, you had Michael Irvin saying the Detroit Lions still play at Silverdome, which was absolutely freaking hilarious. And then you just have people calling Jamar Gibbs, which makes no damn sense. So, well, it's great to have you on, man.
Man, it's a pleasure to be on. First time being here. Love the overlay, man. I love the work you put into this podcast, man. Love the setup. You could tell you really take what you do serious, and I appreciate that. I can appreciate that as much as anybody else because I understand how much, as podcasters, money wise, we put into this stuff to
Yeah,
give the public a quality product.
yeah.
And you do a good job, man.
When we come on here, we gotta try to give people what they want, and give them actually good stuff. You guys do a good job with Lions Avenue, and there's a lot of other good ones out there, but you guys do a great. You and Nishante do a hell of a job out there, so I love it.
Appreciate it.
So I figured we start out with the injury report. Obviously, today we talked about. I mean, today we heard from Ian Rappaport that Sam Laporta will be potentially playing today, so he's probably going to play. But if you looked at the injury report, it was Jerry Jacobs is out. He's going to be on IR. Houston's out still on IR. James Mitchell had hand surgery. Khalif Raymond's out. John Kaminsky's dealing with the illness. He's questionable. And then Sam Laporta, obviously, we just talked about that. Ian Rappaport says that he is going to be playing.
Mm.
I'm wondering from your feeling. What do you think about that, Walter?
Um, Funny enough, out of all of them, I'm kind of really down on the fact that James Mitchell won't be playing. That kind of came from out of nowhere. I thought a couple weeks ago everyone expected him to be a big part of this not defense, a big part of this offense. A lot of 12-man, 13-man personnel. That kind of goes out the window,
Yeah,
given the fact that, he was used mainly as a blocker with the emergence of Sam Laporta. But people forget James Mitchell is also a very solid pass catcher tight end. So not having him, also Brock Wright, the
yeah.
Brock Wright situation with his hip, him being hampered, Sam being hampered. I think it puts a huge, huge load of the workload on the wide receiver core.
Yep.
And I believe offensively, that's been the one group of players that's been kind of underwhelming outside
Yeah.
of Amon-Ra St. Brown. We get solid possession catches on third down, drive extenders from time to time from Josh Reynolds. But outside of that, Khalif is sort of a guy who shows up and has a special game every 3 or 4 weeks. Donovan Peoples-Jones hasn't given us much. So I think it's going to put a large load of work on the wide receiver core. Now, James Houston, didn't expect him to come back anyway. I thought it was kind of wishful thinking over the past few weeks once
Right.
Lions fans heard about him being back on the team. Um, Even if he would have played, what could we expect? What kind of get off could we expect? He's not healthy
Mm-hmm.
at all. And if he would have been here all season, along with a Chauncey Gardner, just imagine how much better this defense would have been. So, yeah, I think the James Houston situation, I don't garner that too much because we didn't have him pretty much the entire season anyway. And I do think we have guys, as you and I discussed in the pre-show, we do have guys that can create some interior pass rush out of
Yeah.
that three tech and as well as that four tech and that 4 eye. So we definitely have some advantages despite the injuries because the Rams have their own load of injuries. And I'm not as down on it as much as a lot of people are right now.
Yeah, the one thing I think about in this game, obviously, you look at James Houston, you're like, man, it'd be great to have him on, pass rushing away from Aiden Hutchinson. But if you look at it, like one of the big matchups that I've been looking at, and I looked at the Pro Football Focus and kind of like the grades and everything, but you look at the mismatch advantage. I mean, Coleman Shelton, their center, is going to be going against Lee McNeil, and Lee McNeil has a 12.1 win rate, and he missed what he missed 4 games this year. So I mean, you talk about that, and you look at Lee McNeil and how good he was doing before the injury, and how he looked pretty good coming back. I just think that they don't really need James Houston now. I think if you get to like the Dallas game where you get to the divisional round, that's when you could use them. But I mean, I think Aiden Hutchinson will have a good day against these tackles for the Rams because they're not that great.
No, I agree wholeheartedly. I believe more than just Aiden can eat. I think Josh Pascal can eat. I think Levi's a guy that's kind of getting lost in all of this with Bugs being gone and Benito being leaned on more as that nose, as the run stopper to do a lot of two gapping. That opens it up for a guy like a true three technique in Levi and Wuzurike. So to me, things are set up. Our strength is our offensive line. You look at their defensive line, their defensive front. They like to run that 3-4. They moved Aaron on out to the edge later on in his career. Still had 8 sacks. You know, if you look at it for what it is, people view that as a disappointment for him, simply because we've seen so many outrageous statistical seasons. But 8 sacks for an interior defensive lineman is still very good. So you still have to
Yeah.
account for him. But
So,
yeah, I just think that defensive line wise, their offensive line is beat up. And what have we done against teams with beat up offensive lines throughout the season? We
beat up
feast.
on them. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
feast on them. You can
Yep.
call us vultures or whatever you want, but when we see a wounded animal, we'll jump on it. So I don't think this offensive line is just gonna miraculously play better in this situation against us on the road, and we're healthy the way we are right now. And Bugs not being there may be a gift for us because I do believe it's going to open up the door for some of these other versatile defensive tackles to play and start eating. We got guys that can really rush the passer, and now Ben Johnson has no choice but to play him.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because when I was yesterday when I was after the Kansas City game, Isaiah Bugs tweeted out that he's with some real dogs now. Well, you didn't even play, brother. So it's like what's wrong
You
with
with
these
some
people?
real dogs? Are you part of them?
He ain't a part of them. But it's funny because like we talked about it. I talked about this before, like earlier this week, and I think we talked about it on the Darcy show with the Detroit Lions podcast, Lions guys. Um, the one of the things I'm looking at is a Branch versus Cup matchup because obviously
Mm.
Cup is going he spends 60% of his time in the slot. Brian Branch is 95.6% of his time in the slot. And I just feel like as bad as Cam Sutton's been, as bad as Cam Sutton is kind of dealing with he's dealing with the injury to this point. I feel like Brian Branch against Cup or Nakua, if you add them up, it's 90% of the time either one of them is in the slot. You know, Brian Branch has been one of our best pass defenders. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? So like, I feel like if Brian Branch is on one of those guys, I feel a little bit confident that he can get it done. And I feel like if there's a pass that if Matthew Stafford puts a pass against Brian Branch that could be picked off, I think Brian Branch can pick it off. Now, hopefully, what they did last game with Ifatu Melifonwu playing some cornerback and Cameron Sutton on
Yeah.
the other side, I feel like that's a good matchup for this Lions team because I feel like a guy like Melifonwu would be great on the cool. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That big body, speedy. He did play corner. He's playing safety right now, but I still think that's a good matchup for the Lions.
Yeah, definitely. I think the Lions have a bigger advantage in that secondary versus guys at the perimeter matchup against the Rams. The people that actually understand. Our strength in our secondary is our safeties. That's what they
Yeah.
built the defense around. The 4-2-5 around is built around the strength of the safeties. You're going to play those four safeties.
Yep.
And our best bet, I think, against those two guys for the Rams is for it to be a collective team effort. I
Yep.
don't think Branch is going to see him extensively all the time. You got Chauncey out there. Chauncey can drop back, play that center third field. He can also come up in the slot and cover cover wide receiver, cover slots. He can blitz. Doesn't blitz as much anymore, but
No.
Branch also can do that. And
Yeah.
you mentioned Melifonwu as far as the matchup with Nakua, makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. They're both around the same height. Iffy may be a little bit thicker, a little bit bigger than Puka right now, a little more physical, but he's the perfect matchup for him. Because at the end of the day, Sutton's too small.
Yep.
Any other corner we have that's out there is not going to be good enough, and they're going to be too small. So, to me, it's got to be a collective effort, and we have to make sure for me, and I mentioned this earlier on Darcy's show, matter of fact, earlier in the week, if we could find a way to get our four best safeties out there and keep them out there consistently, that's our best chance of covering those dudes. And that's Chauncey out there for the leadership and the versatility and the playmaking ability. That's Kirby Joseph
Hmm.
running that deep zone to his best of his ability. And you got whether they decide to play Tracy, Tracy may play a role in this as well.
Yep.
If he's not going anywhere.
No.
He's not
No.
going anywhere, and Branch isn't going anywhere. So those I think are our four best defensive backs, and that's before you even get to Sutton, who's an actual corner.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying. They got versatility back there, and if they wanted to move Chauncey Gardner Johnson on one of them, or they wanted to move Melifano back, they could do a lot of different things and a lot of different disguises. Like if they really wanted to, they could have all of those guys out there, and then someone's going on a blitz at the last minute. You know what I'm saying? That's something that I like to look at. It's just fun to look because Aaron Glenn has never had his full complement of players this year. You know what
Exactly,
I'm saying? I mean, we
exactly.
we came into this year, we thought Emmanuel Mosley was going to be the second corner. That lasted all of 2 snaps. We thought Chauncey Gardner Johnson would be playing. He didn't play for a majority of the year. It's basically been Hutch, a bunch of other guys. Liam McNeil missed some time. John Kaminsky, as good as he does with his, tackling, he's been in and out of the lineup pretty much. I mean, it's a
And
young
they've
deep,
continued to win, and I
and it's
think that's something that people aren't giving us credit for.
no,
Never losing two straight games all season, despite all the injuries we had, and that's
they
not even touching the offensive line injuries.
they ain't giving any the Lions credit because I I I swear to you, Walt, me and you talked about this pre-show. These people don't watch the Detroit Lions. They just don't, man. Like I hear Jamar Gibbs, and I'm like, bro, you don't watch this team worth a shit. Or when I hear Michael Irvin say that they still play in a Silverdome, bro, that was 20 years ago. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just like crazy to me. And it's
Oh,
like,
and also Stafford knows every single spot on the field.
oh, does he? It's new turf. It's
Yeah,
new turf. It's like what the hell? But
yeah,
it's just funny to me because Aaron Glenn got his full complement of players that he thought he would have, except Mosley. And I think that Chauncey Gardner Johnson being back, that's huge because it gives a little bit more depth in the safety department.
yep.
And he's a baller. I mean, you can't say anything. The one thing he does great in the game is make tackles. He doesn't miss
Well,
tackles.
the confidence also. Not
Yeah,
that this young team needed any more confidence. I think that's also something, as you mentioned, people who don't watch us don't take into account the things that we're talking about right now.
yeah,
As young as this team is, and for them to not have a lot of high end talent on defense or whatnot, they go on the road and travel well.
yeah,
You don't find too many young teams that go on the road. It seems like they play better on the road than they do at home sometimes. That's another reason why I'm not really worried about this team. Some people think that the moment may be too big for them. How often do we see since last season, after the 1-6 start, how often have we seen this team led by Dan Campbell go out and the game just look too big for them? Maybe the
Not-
Baltimore game.
yeah. But even the Baltimore game, I would say that they just.
And the Carolina game last year was honestly a fluke.
I
I
think the
thought the Carolina did to us what certain teams could do to us last season, which was line up at 12-man personnel and just beat us up.
yeah.
But that was last year.
I think Baltimore game that was more of like a they went on the road and I don't think they expected Baltimore to be that great. You know what I'm saying? I think they expected Baltimore to be good, but I think a lot of teams that go to Baltimore think, oh shit, like, we could beat this team and then they get in a track meet and they're like, holy shit, like what do I do, dude?
This defense is real. This
Yeah,
state the
you got
loudness in this stadium is real.
man, you got Lamar Jackson just making chicken out of chicken shit. Like it's just like what the hell,
You
dude?
hear
Like
former players say that going to play at Baltimore is a scary place. Like when that
y-
crowd gets into it and those ravens start flying over the top of the
man,
stadium, and yeah,
it's
it's crazy there.
it's insane because like when you talk about it, like the NFC teams that go to Baltimore, they only got one loss. Like the Baltimore Ravens have only had one loss at
Yeah,
their stadium with NFC teams coming in, and everyone brings up the Rams Ravens game where the Rams took them to overtime and blah 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 blah. But the one thing I think about that game is number one, that was one of Lamar Jackson's worst games of the season, and he still had a good game. And
right.
number two, one of the things we're going to talk about in a few is The whole reason that this Rams team is absolutely gettable, and there's going to be a guy that's going to have to show out. Whoever is a punt returner for the Lions is going to have to show out because they are
Antoine Green.
horrible. They are horrible. Yeah, I think it could be I think it'd be DPJ. To be honest,
Mm.
I think DPJ is going to be the punt returner today. But look, this is what I was talking about. They're the worst in the NFL in average return. The worst. They're giving up, I think it's like 21 yards per return. They're the worst. Their special teams is 31st in the NFL. Another thing that people don't understand is if you're going to be going to this game today, be loud when they kick the ball, kick the field goals or extra points, because the one thing that this Rams team
Yeah.
sucks at is special teams. They are absolutely brutal. We think that the Detroit Lions are brutal on the special teams department. They're worse. They're way
Yeah.
worse than anybody we play.
Yeah. They're also one of the worst in the league in zone coverage. And they play zone 95% of the time. So, like, okay, so you're going to play this cover three zone. You're going to close the middle of the field, but you're going to still give up all these damn yards. And you're going to let Jared Goff, who wants to do that. Jared is perfectly happy not forcing the ball down the field. So you're going to make it easier for our wide receivers. We got the issues we have at wide receiver right now. So now you're going to give Donovan Peoples-Jones or Jameson Williams these open comebacks. You're
Yeah.
going to give them digs. And if Ben Johnson decides to do what he should do in order to really open up the middle of the field, start running some split field concepts, that's why I feel a guy like Antoine Green and Jameson Williams, those are two dudes that should play today. That speed is going to change the offense for us tonight, if they allow those guys to go out there and play.
Well,
Because if you, I
I
just,
think they have
I
to.
just feel like somebody has to be that guy, that
I
unsung hero to step up in this playoff game for us in the receiving room.
I feel like this is the game that Jameson Williams kind of breaks out. To be honest, because I look at this team and I don't know where the graphic went, but one of the things about this team, I got a couple stats for you, Walter. 3 of the top players in this game in missed tackle percentage are from the LA Rams cornerbacks. 3 of the top 4 in this game for yards after reception, yak, are LA Rams. They're Witherspoon's giving up 14.9, Kendrick's giving up 14.5, Durant's giving up 14.2. Like that's a lot of freaking yards you're giving after the catch, man. And if you
And
give a
Durant
guy,
might be their best corner.
that's what I'm saying. Like it's like, and then I
Yeah.
was hearing the Lockdown Rams guy, and he was talking about how they have a guy he's a safety. He's one of their best defensive backs. I go, okay, let me just tell you this right now. If one of your best defensive backs is a safety who plays deep all the time, you got problems. Because number one, you're gonna have to make tackles against the Lions. I don't care who you are. A
Yeah.
guy like Jameson's gonna get away from you. A guy like St. Brown's gonna get away from you. And a guy like if Laporta's playing at least 80%, he's gonna get away from you. I mean, this
But
is
that's
just
even before you get to the run game. Montgomery's going to get to the second level on you. And
yeah,
you're going to have to eventually tackle him too.
that's what
And
I'm
then you're going to
saying.
have to eventually chase down Jameer Gibbs.
Yeah,
So
and then
we force you to tackle. We definitely do.
you got to tackle, and if you don't tackle, you're probably gonna lose this game. And I look at this and I go, the guy who has the best coverage grade of this whole game is going to be Brian Branch. So that tells you everything you need to know. I mean, it's not the Rams player, it's not anybody else. But there is a guy who, if you're kind of thinking, okay, who's the guy to pick on the most? It's this guy. He's the penalty king this week. It's Kendrick. Now,
Former
Darian,
Clemson Tiger, and Georgia Bulldog.
the Georgia Bulldog,
Yeah.
Clemson Tiger, transfer portal era. He's got 11 penalties, Walter, but he's got 20 penalties that he was called against, but they just didn't accept like I think 9 of them. So when I saw that, I was like, I went back over the game logs and I was like, man, he gets all these penalties all the time, like pass interference, pass interference, pass interference. And then I looked at the wide receivers that he had all those issues with, and it's speedy guys, like kind of like if you had a Jameson or a St. Brown, like he struggles with those guys that are elusive. He does like the guys that are physical. So if he was on Josh Reynolds, he'd be all right. But like he hates those elusive, agile wide receivers. And with this wide receiver group, I mean, even DPJ is agile and elusive. So this is a game where if I'm looking at something that could sway the game in the Lions' favor, it's this guy. I mean, you have 11 penalties. I mean, that's just 20 were called, but only 11 were accepted. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, that's very well possible. Like I said, once you get away from the defensive line of the Rams, things get kind of sketchy as
Yeah,
far as playmakers for them. Like I said, they
yeah,
give up a ton of yards, they give up the touchdowns, they play zone a good solid 95% of the time. They don't come out of it. They don't play the man. So it's like, and then you throw out there that they don't really have the highest quality corners as well. And I'm with you 100%. I think this is a game where if Jameson's going to do it, we need him to do it here. As Lions fans, and as I'm pretty sure people within that organization, we're still waiting to see him. We've seen multiple games like this from Garrett Wilson. We've seen
yeah.
multiple games like this from Chris Olave and Drake London. As Lions fans, we're still waiting on that 8-catch, 175, 2-touchdown game from Jameson to really let everyone know he's here. And I think this defense right here, if they can neutralize the interior pass rush of the Rams, it's over.
Yeah.
It's over. Because the Rams aren't going to be able to run the football. And you'd be hard pressed to actually convince me to believe that the Rams are going to come in here and do what only 3 other teams were able to do all season.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
And I look at this. There's also this. The Los Angeles defense getting up 2% more points than league average. 6% Los Angeles concedes more passing yards than league average, and then 27% Detroit concedes less rushing yards on their defensive side. Everyone talks about Kyren Williams, but I'm telling you right now, there is no defense that's more capable of stopping Kyren Williams than this defense right here. There's
Man,
just
these
none.
people are just talking out their ass, man.
I mean, you
You
look at
hear the
all
people
these.
talk about Kyron Williams is going to run the ball on us. Behind what offensive line?
You look at this. You look at all these running backs like Pollard. Okay, pretty good year, 49 yards. I
Yeah.
mean, the one guy that kind of did pretty damn good was Josh Jacobs, and he got 61. Gus Edwards 64. Like that was a game that they were pretty much around the ball the whole game. Bijan got 33. Walker got Kenneth Walker got 43. Pacheco 23. Like Eckler got 67. That was the highest of the whole year until Chandler last week. But it was like come on, man. Like there's Kamara got 51. Like there's no defense that has done as well against the run than the Detroit Lions. And that's something that I look at and I'm like, man, when people talk about Kyren Williams running all over Detroit, I'm like, what are you watching, dude?
They're
Like
not.
it's clearly you don't watch because the Lions defense is their best thing has been their run game, run defense.
Well, I mean, people are talking about us like we're a 9-win team. Like the league just penciled us in for 12 wins. We really didn't play anybody. We just showed up and had 12 wins, whatever. This team, you understand this more than anybody else, I'm pretty sure. What does it mean when you're top 5 in the league in stopping the run and you're top 5 in the league in rushing
I
on
mean,
both sides of the football?
it means they're pretty damn good in the trenches.
Okay. And typically, don't those teams win?
Yeah. I
Okay.
mean, my thing about this though, is this. People talk about this Lions team, right? And they're like, oh, like they haven't played no one or something. I hear that all the time. I heard that with Michael Irvin on that, but you didn't watch that. But you got to go back and watch it because that was funny as hell. Just a total comedy show.
Yeah,
But
it is.
he was saying, he was saying the Lions haven't played no one. So what? The Dallas Cowboys ain't no one. Holding you guys to 20 points at Dallas when you guys are
My
averaging
thing is,
40.
why is he bagging on us so hard? Well, I understand now. I just understood midpoint. Like, why I was about to ask, why is he bagging on us so hard, but riding the Rams so much? Oh, it's because he's kind of sick about what happened. I think there's some Cowboy fans that still looking at us sideways, like, yeah, whatever. You guys think that you almost had us and this and that.
Man, I'll tell you what. I'm pretty clear on this. The Cowboys don't want to see Detroit. There's a lot of teams that don't
No,
don't
they
want
don't.
they don't
They
want to see
don't.
Detroit for a couple of reasons. Number one, they stop the run. Number two, they can run the ball on you. It doesn't matter who you are. I mean, the 3 games that Detroit ran for like under 100 yards was when Dave Montgomery was hurt, when he got hurt mid game and there was no Jameer Gibbs and Craig Reynolds was running the ball. And then there was a couple other games that where they basically the Baltimore game where they had to pass to get make plays, and then there was a Green Bay game where they just kind of struggled. And me and you were in lockstep this whole time, saying we did not want to play Green Bay because Green Bay presents a lot of challenges for this offense. Their front seven's great, and I feel like if I was going to pick a team that I was going to play, I was going to play the Rams.
Oh, definitely, definitely. You covered it all right there. I mean, I said it as soon as it came out that Sunday night. Like, let Dallas and Dak deal with that shit. Like Rashawn Gary and Kenny Clark and Quay Walker and like all of these interchangeable 6'5", 270-pound dudes who can all rush the passer, who can all play 3 tech, play 4 tech, play 5, play 6. Like these are dudes who Jared did not want to see.
No,
And as great as our offensive line can be, they struggle against Green Bay.
yeah,
And then there's no element of surprise with Green Bay. Granted, the Rams played us 3 years ago when we were in the embryonic stages of our rebuild, and they were really good, and they went on to win the Super Bowl. But things are different now. The talent is completely different on this team. Golf is 3 years removed from being under Sean McVay. You know, things are completely different right now.
and I love when people go back and they say, "Oh, this Rams team has playoff experience." I mean, where? Besides
Who?
Cooper Cup,
Aaron
besides Aaron Donald, besides
and Matt.
Matthew Stafford, like who has the playoff experience? There is no Andrew Whitworth at left tackle. There is no
Yeah.
Von Miller on the edge. There is no Odell Beckham. There is no Jalen Ramsey. Like, get the hell out of here, dude. Like, it's silly season with all these predictions and all these things because when we look at the betting line, so it's spread who as underdogs the Rams are 2-6.
Mm.
As favorites, the Lions are 11-3. That should tell you everything you need to know about why this is happening and why the line has not moved. The public money is all over the Rams, right? Public money is all over the Rams. But the one thing that's not on the Rams side is the sharp bettors. And those are the guys that make all the money betting on these games because they know what they're doing. They're professional bettors and they know. And the line hasn't moved. If Vegas's job is to balance the money. So if 97% of the tickets of the public money is on the Rams, and you got 3% that are holding serve with the point spread, just saying, it's a really easy game to kind of get with that. I mean, they're not going to keep the point spread at 3 if 97% of the tickets are right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Vegas knows us.
Yeah,
Let's be honest about it. Vegas knows us. Vegas knows the Rams. Um, Outside of the people who the casual fans,
yeah,
and you got a lot of casual fans that actually work for the NFL as well. That work for these networks that cover football. They don't really watch. There's certain teams that they watch. I watched
yep,
the interview with Trent Dilfer a couple days ago on the podcast. He talked about how doing television was just it was kind of irritating, different because you're not really allowed to say what you want to say. You got to talk about what they want you to talk about,
mhm,
and overall, it just is what it is, and it's hard to really be yourself. And I'm gonna say this, Joe. Put yourself in the shoes of a non-Lions fan. You're from Albuquerque, New Mexico. You're from Miami, Florida, where you're from Texas, wherever you're from, and you have this outside perception of the Detroit Lions. Like they've never been squat since you've been alive.
right,
Some people just find it hard to believe it,
yeah. Well,
despite the fact that they look at the team and say, you know what, this team has been on a tear ever since they started 1-6 last season.
yeah,
Instead of looking at it for this, instead of just viewing everything as the shoe is gonna eventually drop on Detroit, and I think that's what it is for a lot of people. Like even if they beat the Rams tonight, let's say they beat them handily, it still won't be on their own merit. The
no,
excuses Monday, like I said, the excuses Monday morning will be Aaron Donald's past his prime and Sean McVay was dealing with an undisclosed heart issue and Matthew Stafford had a bruised shoulder since week 4 and
yeah,
Cooper
playing
Cup
hurt,
hurt his ankle. That's why I hope everybody stays healthy.
yeah,
I do not want to see Wentz at all. I want to beat Stafford.
yeah,
Because that'll be another excuse. Well, you guys won, but Stafford went out with this, and it. It won't be on our own accord. Hell, they'll find a way if the Bucks beat Philly and Green Bay beats Dallas, that means Tampa comes here next week. They'll find ways to pick Tampa
Oh yeah,
because Tampa has championship pedigree
it's
from
it's
three
just
years ago.
it just doesn't make sense to me. Like I just I laugh at it because like they're I mean obviously I hear it from people that I know that
Yeah.
are not Lions fans. They go, "Oh, it's a Lions." Well, that's not the right thing to say. Like if you're gonna be honest with yourself, like if you're gonna talk about a team, you better know what you're talking about.
But you don't have to. Television doesn't even hold NFL people to that standard anymore. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. You hear these people who played 12, 13, 14 years in the league, made Pro Bowls, refer to a Lion game as, well, it's the Lions.
No, I agree. It's just funny to me because I hear from people that I know, like, oh, it's the Lions, and this is how they're gonna do it, and they haven't done anything. I tell them all the time. I've seen the Boston Red Sox win the World Series. Okay, I've seen the San Jose Sharks, who were habitual chokers in the playoffs, just make a Stanley Cup. They didn't win a Stanley Cup; they made a Stanley Cup. Okay, St. Louis Blues won a Stanley Cup. They were habitual chokers too. They went to the Stanley Cup final multiple times and never won. They were known as the choking team in the NHL. And guess what? They win. Chicago Cubs. It sports. You can never say that one team is going to stay the same the whole time. Just we've seen the Arizona Cardinals go to the Super Bowl. Okay, so that tells you everything you need to know. They're one of the losing franchises in NFL history. So it's
Yeah.
just funny to me. All right, so I got. Let's talk about our concern level. Is there? Obviously I know that me and you have are kind of locked up on this, but are you concerned about this game today? And what concerns you the most?
Um, if I could put my concern at a level of whether they're gonna win or lose, I would put it somewhere at maybe a four.
Right, that's me too.
Just because is we have enough common sense to understand that the better team in football doesn't always win. It's not a 7 game series. You can go out there and just lay an egg.
Yep.
Guys can be beat up from practicing all week. Mentally, they can be worn down from film all week. This guy could have gotten to it with his wife before the game, and now his brain isn't in it. You can deal with a few bad calls early. Guys drop passes early. A lot, and we've seen it for years. When it comes to like playoff football, tensions run high.
Yep.
And it's like one or two things can throw a team off that happens in the first quarter of a game. Like I said, how are the refs going to call the game? Do we go into halftime saying between the Lions and the Rams we had 16 penalties in the first half? We have no idea exactly how things are going to turn out though.
No, I agree with you right there. My whole thing about this concern level is the only thing I'm concerned about, and it's the only thing I'm concerned about, is if like they do get interior pass rush on
Mm-hmm.
Jared Goff. You know what I'm saying? Because I do know that one of Jared Goff's strengths this year has been he's been better at pressure, not turn into a sack.
Yeah.
So he's top three in that. There's Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen ahead of him, but it's him at third. And I look at that and I go, okay, that says anything. But when you got guys like Aaron Donald and Kobe Turner kind of feast on quarterbacks holding onto the ball too much, that's something I get concerned about. But like the major thing that doesn't really concern me is I think the Lions can run all over this team. I just feel like in my bones, like if you're gonna win in the playoffs, me and you know this well more than anybody. If you're gonna win in the playoffs, you got to have a run game. You got to be able to stop the run. Those are two of the things that you need in the playoffs.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think they can throw the ball all over this defense too.
Yeah. I
Honestly,
mean,
man.
I look at this. I look at their defensive stats. Like if we look at the defense stats right now, like you look at it, they're mirroring each other. I mean, passing
Yeah.
yards, they're both giving up 225 plus a game. Rushing yards, the Lions obviously are better than them. It's nearly a point difference in the points. Detroit's better on third down, so I think that's one of the things that I look at. And there's also another thing. This is an elusive rating, so it's how elusive your running back is. When he's carrying the ball, and Gibbs is the better one of anybody. Obviously, we know
Yeah.
that. and then Williams is second. But Montgomery is not far behind. Okay,
Yeah.
Montgomery's not far behind. That's the shocking part to me. And then the breakaway percentage. This is how many times they get away from the team. Look at that. Gibbs 38.6, Montgomery 21.8, and then you got Williams 21.7. And I've told people from the start this week, well, the reason Kyron Williams gets the yardage he gets is because he gets a plethora of runs. He gets carries up the wazoo. Okay. There is Montgomery doesn't get those carries and Gibbs don't get those carries. They split carries, okay? And one of the things that I noticed is when Sean McVay goes when the run game is not there, he goes away from it. It's not to his
Yeah.
detriment, but that's what he does. Like it's when the run game isn't going, he starts getting panic and he starts. I mean, for a Super Bowl head coach, you would think a Super Bowl head coach would be like, okay, we're gonna keep running the ball and eventually we're gonna break one. But he's his exact opposite. He'll be like, all right, we can't run the ball. We're not gonna run the ball. We're gonna go back to our passing the ball with Cooper Cup, Puka Nakua, Tutu Atwell, who is like 5'9". It's like, all right, whatever. You want to do that? Let's turn it into a shootout.
Yeah. Um, I think it's going to be different from McVay because if you look at even when the Rams were in their heyday with golf and going to the Super Bowl and winning all those games and whatnot, they were still built off of Todd Gurley,
Yeah,
in the run game. So I think he understands how valuable the run game is, especially to Stafford. A couple years ago they won the Super Bowl off the right arm of Stafford. He had some issues that season with some picks through 17, I believe. But at the end of the day, he came there and he did what they felt Jared Goff couldn't do, which was lead those game-winning drives and big moments. He did it in the NFC Championship against Frisco. He
yep,
did it in the Super Bowl against the Cincinnati Bengals. So they understand also he's been beat up a lot since that Super Bowl. He was beat up a lot here. So he was damaged goods when they got him. They managed to win with him. And for the moment in time being, they're still winning now with him with a younger roster. But if they can't run the football, it's bad for them.
no,
That's
yeah,
why it's hard for me to really believe that they're going to come in here and they're going to run the ball all over us and they don't even have an offensive line. For everybody who's saying this on television that Kyron Williams has been hot as of late, you fools, we've been hot all season.
but look who they
Our
played
run
though.
defense has been hot all season. You telling me about some shit that Kyron Lacy's done the last 4 weeks?
But look who they played though. I mean,
Of
we talk about
course.
the Baltimore defense, how good they are. You know what I'm saying? One of their struggles is against the run. I mean, they give up 100 plus a game, and so
Yeah.
like when I looked at the Rams and who they played, and I go, okay, they've literally played chicken shit. I mean, the Cleveland Browns. I mean, yeah, the Cleveland Browns are good, but we got to remember when they played the Cleveland Browns, it was Flacco's first game.
Yeah.
We've seen what the Cleveland Browns were yesterday, and that's just what the way it goes. Like I don't value anyone they beat in the last couple games. I mean, you want
But
to
you
say
you
that
notice this though? You notice how they give them credit for the games they want to give them credit for and discredit us for those same games. We got common opponents. They
yeah,
want to give them credit for going toe to toe and losing the overtime to the Ravens and the Ravens kicking our ass, but they don't want to give us credit for going into Dallas and doing what nobody else did
yeah, because the
and
Rams got
nearly beating that
smoked in
team.
Dallas.
Because at the end of the day, we both lost. We lost to Dallas twice. I mean,
Yeah,
Dallas beat both us,
yep,
and the Ravens beat both of us.
yeah,
But
and
you can argue shit. Dallas was a juggernaut at home,
okay, if you're gonna give
and Dallas destroyed them.
part of the reason I think this is stupid is because Dallas destroyed them, Baltimore destroyed us, so there's a 1-1, right? And then we played tough against Dallas. They played tough against Baltimore. No one's disputing that, but we played against a full fledged Baltimore team. Okay, when Baltimore went against LA, there was no Mark Andrews. Okay, Mark Andrews is one of the best tight ends in football. When you go against Mark Andrews, there's no Mark Andrews. I mean, I got to tell you, it's going to be a lot easier than it was for the Lions.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? People just don't understand that.
Well, like I said, they're not. Joe, we're just football snobs. Let's call it that because we expect all football fans to be to the level that we're at, where we just crunch numbers and watch games over and over again and try to be rational about it. You're trying to be rational with a bunch of irrational ass people. Most
Yeah.
fans don't want to be rational. They just view the Lions how they view the Lions, and you can't tell them otherwise. That's just how it is. Someone mentioned in the comment section, even if we make it to the Super Bowl and lose by a field goal, same old Lions. It's the same old Lion thing to make it all the way to the Super Bowl and lose by a field goal. They're never going to be anything. Watch what happens. Watch what happens. If we beat the Rams, it won't be on our own accord. But like I said, if you're being unbiased about the situation, man, from my point of view, I look at which
Yeah.
team does more things well. I understand a lot of times we harp on the quarterback position and that the quarterback is the difference maker and this and that. Does Stafford have the ability to come here and get it done? It does. He
Yeah.
does. But at the end of the day, man, like I said before, a team built like the Rams haven't been able to beat us all season.
Yeah, I'm not really worried about the Lions in terms of beating them. I think that we got plenty of advantages to take advantage of. You look at their tackles, and we don't know which one's going to play. Is it going to be No Bloom? Is it going to be Jackson? But
It don't matter.
their pressure, the
It
pressure,
doesn't matter.
the pressure at left tackle. That's where I would move Hutch. 26.8% of the time, that's where the pressure comes from.
Yep.
And for the Lions, it's Jonah Jackson. He's the 24.6, which it sucks because Jonah Jackson's going for. If I was Brett Holmes, it does suck because I'd be like, look, bro,
Man.
24.6 of the time pressure comes from you. So you gotta cut that shit out. And maybe we'll give you a 2-year deal and then you can take a bridge deal kind of thing.
And listen.
But all these teams in the NFL suck at the offensive line. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be like, oh, overpay. Like what's that guy Nate Solder that went to the Giants? Remember that?
Oh yeah, from New
They,
England.
yeah, they paid him all that money and he was just a shell of himself. He went there and it was absolutely brutal. Giants fans were like, "What the hell, dude?"
Yeah. I mean, Note Bloom isn't any good anyway, in his own right.
No.
And Alaric Jackson is terrible. So I keep going back to what it is, man. People just don't want to see it. This
No.
whole game right here, even though the Rams ain't nothing like the Lakers, but it has that whole beat LA going along with it, where it's like y'all just don't like us and don't want to give us the credit we deserve for what we are. And
Yeah.
you think this team feast off of this. This is that type of bitter chip on the shoulder team right here. They hear this. They know the entire ESPN panel picked against them.
Yeah. And I think a guy like Amar St. Brown takes that on. I think a guy like Hutch takes that on. I know a guy
I
like
think
Chauncey.
Golf takes it on in his
Oh yeah,
own subtle way.
he's
Yeah.
kind of he's kind of quiet, but he ain't like St. Brown and Hutch and Chauncey Gardner Johnson where he's gonna speak about it. But I think that they all take it and they go, okay. Dan Campbell's putting that shit up right in the locker room. Like, look, no one believes in you, bro. No one believes in you, man. No one. Like it's like this is a perfect time for the Lions because I feel like with Matthew Stafford coming in, that's where all the media are going to gravitate towards too. And I just feel like this team is like, we don't know Matthew Stafford. Like majority of these guys don't know who
They
Matthew
angry,
Stafford is.
and I
Yeah,
want them that way. They angry. I'm pretty sure they bitter. They got a
yeah,
chip on their shoulder and they feel some type of way. I would too. This is our home game. We're 12-5. Regardless of how you feel about us, we finished with the same exact record as the 49ers.
yep,
However we got there is however we got there, but they didn't finish with 14 wins. They finished with the same damn record as we finished. But like I
yeah,
said, they don't want to respect it right now. They
yeah.
don't, but you got to make them respect it. This team is, if you're comparing the team, this team is better.
No, I
They
say
have Aaron Donald, but we have more, I think, spread out throughout the roster. We have more difference makers, especially in the secondary at the safety position.
I feel like we're more equipped to handle a team like the LA Rams because of they want to go downfield. The safeties, a guy like Melifonwu coming out of nowhere has been great for this team. It's just been great. We needed someone like that. We need someone that could maybe play corner too. And I seen the slot, like the alignments last game, because I was interested to see what that was. And you had Chauncey Gardner Johnson playing safety a lot, and then Kirby Joseph playing safety. But you had Melifonwu playing a corner, like we said earlier. He'd be great against Puka Nakua. You can even you could put freaking Chauncey Gardner Johnson against Puka Nakua. And then, Cameron Sutton, maybe he's going against a guy like Tutu Atwell, or maybe he's going against a Cooper Cup who kind of he can kind of match up well against. I mean, I seen the Pittsburgh Steelers go to LA with those garbage corners that they had and kind of hold them at bay.
Yeah, I mean, but a lot of that comes back to matchups too. It really does. I just think, and then isn't Higby out also for the Rams?
He's questionable, but people are saying that he's not going to play. So I was reading something from one of the Rams
Yeah,
writers, and they were saying like, yeah, he probably won't play, and
yeah,
hopefully he doesn't, because I mean, he's a good tight end. He's kind of like that action. But if I'm going to be honest, like if there's one player that's really showed how good he is against tight ends in terms of tackling him before he gets out, gets a lot of yak yardage, it's been Derek Barnes and Alexander Zaloni. I mean, as good as bad as they are in pass coverage, they're exceptionally well at making a tackle and not letting a player get out there. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. I think another thing that we haven't talked about enough that kind of coincides with how good this run defense has gotten even better. They started the season very good, very good. Um, the better and more comfortable and more alert Jack Campbell has played,
Oh
the
yeah,
run defense has gotten even better. And I didn't think the run defense could get any better than what it was at the beginning of the season. They're beyond elite now.
no,
Once
yeah,
you go from 88.8 to 60.2, they've given up an average of 60.2 yards on the ground the last 3 or 4 games.
yeah.
That's beyond elite.
Well, I think Jack
And it
Campbell.
got to a point where teams didn't even try to run. Remember, Tampa wasn't trying to really throw the ball even the prior 3 games before playing us, but Tampa just took it out of the equation,
Yeah,
and
they
that's
said
what
we ain't,
most teams did against us.
we ain't running, and Rashad White had a pretty damn good year too. So I mean, I look at this like this. Well, I think Jack Campbell has kind of grown up a little bit. He's becoming a player that we drafted in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
I think Brian Branch has grown up a little bit. He's got. I mean, the first game he made an impact on the game, but he's been playing exceptionally well the last 4 or 6 weeks. I mean, in the slot, he's been really freaking good. I mean, I think in the last 6 weeks he's allowed. I think it's like it's like 47% catch percentage, reception percentage. So that tells you all you need to know. And I just think that this, Mel Famu coming out of nowhere, it's been great for this team. And then you got Chauncey Gardner Johnson coming back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It kind of gives you what. And then another person we haven't talked about much has been Hutch. I mean,
yeah,
Hutchinson, the last couple games, I mean, the last, I think it's 5, 6 games, he's played like the player we expected him to be. You know what I'm saying? Me and you
yeah,
were in the middle of the season. We were talking about how Hutch needs to get together, and it was Greg Rice. Remember Greg Rice? He's like, man, Kayvon Thibodeau is playing damn good, and then all of a sudden Hutch just has a 3-sack game against the Cowboys, who have a good offensive line. I'm excited to see what he does against this offensive line because I
yeah,
feel like we have feasted on bad offensive lines. Like the
yeah.
Raiders
I don't
coming.
care. I mean, I just wanted to see the production. And
Yeah,
even if you look at the Dallas offensive line, Terrence Steele was kind of crap all season. And that was
yeah,
something that we discussed prior to that game, that before Hutchinson got a hold of him, Terrence had already given up 8 or 9 sacks on the season. He
yeah,
was playing very up and down. Tyron Smith, when he's out there and healthy, which isn't that often, still one of the best left tackles in football. Tyler Smith is a good football player, but he's still kind of inconsistent up and down. We were able to feast.
yeah.
I don't feel sorry for you if you have a bad offensive line. We invested in ours.
No,
So I don't have to feel like I have to apologize if my defense goes out there and pushes your offensive line around. Get a better offensive line.
see, that's the funniest part is about like all these people. Like I hear
That'll be the excuse too if we push them around too.
I hear
Oh,
people
Stafford didn't have an O line.
I hear people saying all the time, like they're like, well, you're lucky to have offensive line. Well, no, it's called
It's called
scouting,
drafting.
it's called drafting, and it's called making the right pick. I mean,
Yeah,
look what's happened with Kansas City. I mean, their offensive line is not that great, but them having a guy
the
like
interior is okay.
Creed Humphrey and Joe Thuney in the middle. All right, that'll
Yeah,
help you out, But you look at the freaking 49ers. I mean, Trent Williams. You think Trent Williams doesn't help the 49ers? I mean, like, come on,
yeah.
man. Like, that's just the way it goes.
They've
So,
missed on some offensive linemen, oddly enough. As great as they drafted defensive wise in the trenches, some of their offensive linemen haven't panned out too
the
much.
49ers.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 49ers. I feel like John Lynch has hit on like the picks that he's hit on. He's hit. like Fred Warner and some of these guys like Dre Greenlaw and everything. And then when he had to pick like number 3 overall for Trey Lance or Solomon
Solomon
Thomas,
Thomas.
you're like, bro, what do you want? Like,
Yeah.
hey,
Wasn't
you.
Reuben Foster a first round pick too?
Oh yeah, Reuben Foster was the first round pick. That was the guy that we were supposed to draft. Remember
The
that?
guy, the
Well,
guy with no shoulders. And I was
yeah,
telling people before the draft, like this dude done had like 3 shoulder injuries, bro. Y'all don't want him. Well, look at the big hits. That's another. Your boy wanted him too. Gator.
get it.
Like, do this dude ever wrap anybody up, or is everything just I'm gonna blow you up?
I mean, the only person I like that blew people up was Nick Bolton. He's been pretty damn good
Yeah,
with Kansas
but we
City
did
stuff.
draft Jared Davis. Jared turned out to have a better career than him. I mean, that's not saying much.
Because Reuben Foster didn't last long.
Yeah, he didn't.
He didn't
Didn't
last long.
somebody just sign him on or bring him on for a workout?
I think it was the Dolphins.
Boy,
The Dolphins bring in everyone that has that. They bring in everyone, bro. All
yeah.
right, let's get to the keys of the game because I think this is the most important part of the podcast. And
Hmm.
I look at this, Walton. I think that me and you are in lockstep with our keys of the game. But what's your key to the game in terms of what you think about this game?
For us, I think starting in defensively, as I mentioned earlier in the show, get your best during this time of year. Make sure you get your best players on the field, and you figure out within the scheme how to utilize them and put them in the best position to play well and win.
Mm-hmm.
The safeties, I want to see more sets with Ifiatu Melifonwu, Kirby Joseph, Brian Branch. He's a safety slash corner, and of course Chauncey Gardner Johnson. I think the effect that Chauncey being back, swag wise and confidence wise, is going to have on that young team and that secondary is going to be great. Make sure it's teams that have duos at the wide receiver position like the Rams. It takes a collective job.
Yeah.
If you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, they've been terrible in the secondary all year. But how did they didn't shut down Tyreek Hill, but they did a better job on Tyreek Hill earlier in the season, and it was by committee. By committee, and it was also by different coverages and different looks. I don't expect them to completely shut down those wide receivers, mainly because we haven't been able to do it in the past game all season. But if people cannot be so hung up on the passing yards, because this could be a game where one of them gets it. And I think it's like instead of getting caught up in the game within the game, which is okay, we got to shut down both of these dudes. Either take Cup away or take Puka away. That's pretty much it. You don't want this to turn into a game like we had against the Dolphins last season, where 2 guys had 200 yards, I believe, Waddle and Tyreek Hill. So I think it's going to be by committee. They're gonna have to do that as far as defensively. Offensively, we already know what the Rams want to do. I don't think they have the personnel to do it the way the Bears did it to us, the way the Packers did it to us, and the way the Ravens did it to us. They're going to play that cover 3 zone, or they're going to try to shut out the middle of the field. Run more concepts passing wise on the split field. Get the small, not necessarily smaller, but get the faster guys out there. I want to see Antoine Green get more snaps on the perimeter. I want to see Donovan Peoples Jones get more snaps on the perimeter. And of course, Jameson Williams as well. We have to make sure we consistently stretch them on the perimeter and we just run those shallow digs underneath, those deep digs underneath. Find ways to manipulate the defense to get the middle of the field open because that's how Jared gets in rhythm. He needs those shorter passes to really help himself get in rhythm, and then that opens up everything deeper. Also, I think with golf, it's going to be about the nerves too. We can't see things go bad early. So if golf can manage this game, I didn't bring the running game up because I'm pretty confident they're going to be able to run the ball, and I'm pretty confident that they'll be able to shut down the run game on the other side of the football. So I've seen enough of this team. You've seen enough of this team to understand exactly what they are. I don't envision them changing up. I don't see a situation where at the end of this game we're talking about, well, damn, we only ran the ball 16 times. That's not going to happen with this team. I expect them to dominate the line of scrimmage on both sides the way they've done all season. I expect the Rams to put up big passing yards the way we've given up all season. I expect Stafford to turn the ball over once or twice. I expect this team to not play above their heads. I think they're going to be into this moment. They understand how big of a game this is. It's huge for them. It's their first playoff game. It's our first home playoff game as a city, as far as Ford Field is concerned. I think that the Rams have too much going against them in this situation. I think Detroit's the better team as well. Can't hear you.
Avery, the Spirit of Detroit podcast. I had it on mute for I don't know why I had it on mute, but Avery he is in the comments and he's saying they're not taking shit away. So he's probably talking about we not taking the Cooper Cup and Puka Nakua away, which it's I look at it like this, man. They don't have to take them away. They just have to eliminate the big play. Let them get their yards, whatever. I don't care. Let them get their yards. My thing is what Aaron Glenn's defense has done exceptionally well the last couple weeks, and I know people they want to bag on Aaron Glenn all the time, which is some bullshit because he's going to get a coaching job because he's done a really good job with this defense in terms of they haven't had their studs like we thought they would have. So he's done a good job, and they're take Jefferson got his yards, CD Lamb got his yards, but guess what they had? 20 points. Like if
Yeah.
you hold a team to 20 points, I don't care about passing yards. I don't care. All week I've heard about how Nick Mullins threw for 300 yards. Well, let him get his yards. Did he score enough? No. They took the ball away, and I think that the most important thing for a pass defense is taking the ball away. Don't care about passing yards. If you ain't taking the ball away, you're probably gonna lose. You know what I'm saying? And then Avery also thinks that JMO will have a big day. I'm interested because I think JMO is
Yeah, I
going to have
hope
a big
so.
day. I think JMO is going to have a huge day. I think this is a game where when we talk about it, Walter, all the time, we talked about all this whole season, man. We talked about JMO needs to get he needs to get on par. We talked about all the things that he needs to get better at, like the body catches and all that stuff. But the last couple weeks, the last couple catches that he's made, like the one against Dallas, where he like literally had Stephon Gilmore on skates. Like I was like, all right, dude, you want to do this? Let's do this. Like I just love the way JMO is playing, and I think these corners that he's going against are going to give him no fits. One thing I think JMO really struggles with is the physicality of a cornerback. So what I've noticed, I mean, when Stephon Gilmore got some hands on him, he kind of like didn't. When he got the break off Gilmore, he did pretty damn good. But for the most part, he don't like those physical corners. So these guys that you got today, he's just gonna blow past them. I mean, there's none of them that can top his speed. None of
Yeah.
them can run.
Yeah. I mean, listen, the Rams have 17 games worth of film on us, so they know what they know. It's different being actually on the field with it. The Vikings were on the field with it twice, the Bears twice, Packers twice. They know how to play against us. It's different when you're actually on the field with that much speed. And we've heard that from a few teams that played the Lions this season that we're faster than people understand, especially with
Yeah,
a guy like Jameer Gibbs, JMO, as you mentioned. I also mentioned I felt that Antoine Green was another guy. You're not going to completely change what you are, philosophy
right.
as a team this time of year, but you do need to add a couple wrinkles. You do. I just think that the Rams have too many ways to be gotten on
Yeah,
defense. They do. And offensively, people aren't talking about the offensive line enough for the Rams. Like it's not good to begin with, and they're nicked up. I don't understand how people just figure without an offensive line, Stafford is just going to do this and that, and Kyron Williams is going to do this and that, and like it's people are paying so much attention to the ancillary parts
mm,
and not what really matters, which is the trenches and the line of scrimmage. If you have no trenches and you have no line of scrimmage, what do you have?
nothing.
Those receivers and the Rams run a lot of long developing routes.
Yeah,
Like there's a lot of things about this matchup that just doesn't bode in the Rams' favor that people aren't really willing to admit.
yeah. I think when you look at, there's another guy that I think could have a big day, and it's a guy who's been clutch all year long in terms of getting first downs. I mean, half his catches come on first downs, and that's Josh Reynolds.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't think he has a axe to bear with Sean McVay? I mean, Sean McVay basically said, "You ain't good enough, bro." Like,
It's gonna be a
we,
collective effort the way it's been with us all season. It may take 13 catches from St. Brown, but it may take an extra 4 from Josh Reynolds, 2 for first downs,
yeah,
drive extenders. It may take 5 from JMO. It may take 3 from Donovan. And
I
none of
think
those dudes may even eclipse 100 yards, but in the playoffs, we need drive extenders.
yeah.
We need a big play from time to time, but we need drive extenders. We got to be able to stay on the field on 3rd and 12,
Even a
3rd and
guy like
13, 3rd and 14.
even a guy like Jameer Gibbs getting out of the backfield and maybe
Yes.
catching a screen
Wheel
and then
routes.
taking it maybe 20, 25 yards. I mean, those are things that win you playoff games. I think one of the things that people kind of miss about playoff football. I mean, I know a lot of Detroit fans are not used to like playoff football. Anyway, the rest of the nation should be used to playoff football. But the one thing in playoff football that matters the most is on crucial downs, do you got the guys that can catch the ball? Do you got guys that can come out of nowhere? Do you got mismatches against the defense? And I look at this Lions team and Jameer Gibbs against their linebackers, sign me up. You know, St. Brown, JMO, DPJ, Josh Reynolds against these corners, sign me up. Laporta against their
Well,
linebackers.
let me ask you about Goff. Because I mean, I think he's the major elephant in the room. Like, do you have the confidence in him? Do you see him playing tight? If it's, let's say it's 3rd and 6, and they're getting the look coverage wise that they want with Jama outside or in the slot, and he doesn't have that over safety help, or even if the Rams do have the over safety help, you're confident enough in JMO that JMO's going to blow the top off of that.
I think he's
Does
became.
he make the throw, or does he take the safe throw, the check down, and then we end up looking at 4th and 2?
See, I think that if Goff is playing the way that he played against Denver or last week,
That's the best game he played all season. He looked like he was completely zoned
I
in.
I feel like when Goff is zoned in, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the game. That's my feeling. Like when he's on, he's on. Like he just can't be stopped because he's got a decent enough arm where he can make some throws. I mean, it's not we see it all the time. Obviously, he doesn't have a Josh Allen arm or a Patrick Mahomes arm, but I feel he can get the ball there. You know what I'm saying? And when I see when he was against Denver, I was like, that's the best he's played all year long. And I feel like there's been glimpses of that this season where he's played like that. And even last game when Laporta went out, they started taking more deep shots. Like I don't know if you noticed, but they started taking more deep shots to like St. Brown, and then there was Josh Reynolds. Like I think Goff is kind of getting into this mode where like he knows what he has to do, and I feel like the Lions are kind of holding back some of their stuff that they've been
No, he
holding
hears
back.
he hears what we say in this town about him. Not us person, well, yeah, sometimes us per se, but he hears what people in this town say about him, that he can't get the ball downfield. That's why I was so happy to see that big time throw to JMO a couple weeks ago. He hit him in stride like we never seen before. And
Right?
did you see the acceleration on JMO
Yeah,
to get there?
yeah,
Like that's something that's something also I believe needs to be a part of this game plan tonight.
yeah.
JMO needs to get at least 3 of those.
If you
At
could
least
stretch,
3 of those looks.
I always looked at this team though, man. Like the Lions have this, they have a ability to stretch the field. They have the ability to go underneath. So as a defense, like where are you going to play the coverage? Like your safeties, where are they going to go? Are they going to go deep? They're going to go short. And if they're going to go short, they're going to leave Jameson wide open or DPJ because DPJ can run deep routes too, or Josh Reynolds. I mean, that's the way it goes. So like you have to pick your poison because if you commit many people to the middle of the field, I think JMO, DPJ, Reynolds can beat you deep. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's a question I got for you. How do you simplify the game plan uh, for a guy like DPJ? Because now on the Lions podcast show a few nights ago with John Macaron, we asked him about it, and he brought up a valid point that happens with a lot of wide receivers, young wide receivers. He's a vet, but it's still an adjustment period for him. This offense isn't really the most athletically gifted wide receiver friendly offense. Like it's about timing.
Yeah,
That's what Jared Goff is about.
yeah,
You know, as you mentioned, he's not Stafford, he's not Josh Allen. He's not gonna just make you respect every blade of grass with his arm. That's not what he is. And it's okay. You don't have to necessarily be that, but
no,
there's still a big issue I had with this season and question with Goff was leaving big plays on the field,
yeah.
leaving points on the field. Um, do you now have the confidence in JMO to just to say, hey, you know what? I got that extra half a second. I'm gonna just chuck this
Yeah,
as hard as I can because at the end of the day, I can't really out throw JMO.
right.
I think he understands that now.
Yeah,
But start giving him the confidence. You need him. Let's be honest about it. Even if we get past the Rams, James is done. James Mitchell is done with that broken hand.
yeah,
He ain't coming back no time soon. Laporta isn't going to be any healthier after this game
no,
at all. Brock Wright still dealing with the hip injury. We're going to need him, not necessarily to put together a Larry Fitzgerald type of run, but we're going to need JMO to really come up big. We're going to need a committee. Like I said, I think there's a point in time where if this team is going to reach the NFC Championship or even further, we're going to need one of those by committee type of wide receiver rooms where one game maybe it was Donovan Peoples Jones, one game it was JMO.
yeah.
If Khalif comes back, maybe it's him. We're going to have to manufacture some points as well. Maybe special teams helps out.
Well, I look at the Eagles last year. You know, the Eagles last year going down the stretch. You know, the divisional round, the NFC Championship. Each of those games, they had someone different as the leading receiver, which I think is very, very interesting because they both have good receivers. But one of the receivers that was their leading receiver was Kenneth Gainwell. Kenneth Gainwell was one of their leading receivers against the
Yeah.
Giants. So, I mean, that's just what I look at. Like, I know a lot of people were upset that the Lions drafted Jameer Gibbs that early because they were like, we could have got Jalen Carter. Like, why didn't you get us Jalen Carter? Well, you got Sam Laporta, you got Jack Campbell, and if you have already anything out of Philly, Jalen Carter is not doing too hot. Just saying.
Yeah, none of those Bulldogs are for the most part. No, I'll be honest, man.
That even
It's
Jordan Davis. I mean, people. I heard Brian Baldinger saying on a Philadelphia podcast I follow. He was saying that Jordan Davis is out of shape. He's overweight. He can't stay on the field. And that was some of the things that people said about him in the draft
it's
process. And I was like,
difficult for those abnormally big linemen, offensive linemen too.
oh yeah,
That's why I was surprised. What's his name, Dewan Jones from the Browns. I was shocked he played as well as he did for this season for the Browns because he was a guy heading to last year's draft I was terrified of.
Thayer
I just
Munford.
don't like those abnormally sized offensive linemen. They tend to always have some sort of health issues,
Yes,
injury issues.
Thayer Munford was another one of those. If we played for the Raiders this year,
Yeah,
he played pretty damn good this year. But I didn't think because of his size and he was kind of unathletic, to be honest. I didn't think he'd be that good. But like you
yeah,
said, you're gonna need guys down the stretch that are gonna have to help you out. Like, I mean, it can't just be one person. And usually it's never just one person. I mean, even with the 49ers, we've seen when they went to the Super Bowl, it was Debo or it was Ayuk or it was Jawan Jennings or it was Kittle or it was
Emmanuel
McCaffrey,
Sanders.
Emmanuel Sanders. Yeah, like that. It's just that's the way that you have to do it, man. Like it's not. You have to have depth on offense. I think the one of the most important things people kind of gloss over in this NFL is they go back to the old adage of defense wins championships and yeah, like defense, you know what I'm saying? And I go look at the last Super Bowl go look at the last 6 Super Bowl champions. You probably got one elite defense there. Probably one. One. I think that was Tampa Bay.
Uh, I think even if we look at probably the Ram Bengals Super Bowl, that was still a 23-20 game. So
Yeah, but
the defenses still kind of show up, but I I do think the defense matters. It depends on what your run is. Remember how great Peyton Manning's career was with the Colts.
right.
They didn't win until the defense stepped up. That
Yeah.
year against the Bears, where they beat the Bears, like that defense went on a hell of a run. And I just found it ironic that it took the running game with Dominic Rhodes and the Die and all those guys and the defense to step up. And Peyton played like crap that playoff.
Yeah.
So it seems like the defense still matters. It
No, no.
matters a lot.
I ain't saying defense don't matter. I'm saying if you're gonna put it in perspective, like you need a run game, you need to stop the run.
Oh
If
yeah.
you give up points, I mean, no one's the Baltimore defense. I mean, that's what I'm trying to say. Like people think you gotta be the
Yeah.
Baltimore defense. You know what I'm saying? I look at the Kansas City Chiefs and go, look, I know they got Mahomes, but that defense wasn't that great. But when the time needed it and they needed to make a stop, they made a stop. And that's the most important thing. I
Yeah.
think it's timing. How does your defense get off the field? And how does your defense not like stay on the field the whole game? You know what I'm saying?
Well, you and I mentioned the Bengals prior in a few shows and even some private discussions. that was a defense that wasn't good, honestly, overall, the year that they went and lost to the Rams. But they played opportunistic defense.
Yeah.
They were still tops in the league in sacks with Trey Hendrickson.
I mean, look at
And
Eli
you got to
Apple.
luck up too. You got to play when you're a struggling defense. You got to luck up and play some teams with some offenses that can't score at all. And Derek Carr and the Raiders couldn't score.
Right.
That helped them out a lot. That beat up Tennessee Titan offense.
Yep.
They couldn't score. That helped them out a lot. And like I said, by the time they got to the AFC Championship against KC, they had already beaten KC in the regular season. So they knew they could do what they did.
Yep.
It's just the possessions in the playoffs are so tight.
That's
Coaches
why.
coach a lot tighter. That's why you typically don't see blowouts the way you did with Houston and Cleveland that often. And if
No.
you do, a lot of times it's a wild card game like that.
Yeah.
I think Houston was just better, and they jumped on them early.
I think
And once you
he's.
jump on a team like Cleveland, and then a defensive team like Cleveland early is bad for them
I think
because
that.
Flacco's been turning the ball over since he got there. Also,
I think that D'Amico Ryan's. I think that D'Amico Ryan's looked at that game when they lost to Cleveland. I mean, they lost to Cleveland. I think he looked at the game and he was like, okay, what do I need to get better? And
mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure what Dan Campbell did is he probably talked to Dennis Allen because Dennis Allen did a pretty good job for the most part of limiting that Rams offense to what they were doing. I mean, the Saints defense isn't good at all, and they've struggled all year long. But I think that he's probably talking to Dennis Allen, going, "Okay, what did you see?" Because these coaches talk to each other. I mean, they were from the same coaching tree. Probably Aaron Glenn's talking to them. You know what I'm saying? Like, what'd you see? What would you do different? You know what I'm saying? Because they try to help their people. Like Sean
Oh yeah,
McVay. You know what I'm saying? That's what I think. I think that they're gonna. And the thing I noticed about this Lions team is they blitz the most over the last 5 to 6 weeks. That's the one thing that I know. They send pressure all the time.
yeah. I mean, I think they have guys now that are more comfortable in the positions that they're in. As fans, we get very impatient when we don't see guys perform at a high level early.
Right.
Young football team.
Yep.
Branch looks a lot more comfortable. As we mentioned, Jack Campbell looks a lot more comfortable. We haven't seen anything from Broderick Martin, of course, but the more Pascal plays, the more
Yep.
comfortable he looks. And like I said, a guy like Levi Wuzarike who has a specific skill set, interior pass rush. And the Rams have issues with interior pass rush. I just feel like people may feel like it's an oddball take or whatever, but I just think that if you take guys with similar skill sets rushing the passer in Levi Wuzarike and Josh Pascal, put those guys in more 3 tech, 4 tech, 4 eye sets because Pascal can line right up over the offensive tackle and give him problems, especially these tackles. So we need to take advantage of what our advantages are, man. I don't see any reasons why we can't dominate this football team.
I was talking with my girlfriend's dad, and I was saying I think there's gonna be a guy that we're not talking about, like a Anzarike, like a John Kaminsky, like a Benito Jones, or someone that's gonna play a big role in today's game. And I don't know, man. I think it could be. I do think it could be Levi Anzarike. To be honest, I think that he's showed a little bit of promise the last couple games. Like he's just gotten better. And I looked at some of the snap counts that he's had on the websites and everything, and he's played a lot better. I mean, there was some games where I think it was Dallas where he had a couple of hurries and a couple of pressures. You know what I'm saying? Eventually,
Yeah,
he's going to get home, and I just think that there's a guy on this defense right now that we are not talking about. That's going to be the guy that really sways this game. And
yeah,
I think it's going to be someone on that defensive line because I think it's going to be the guy that we're not really talking. I mean, we always talk about Aiden Hutchinson, how he's going to eat. You know what I'm saying? Against these tackles, you should eat. But this interior offensive pressure, man, I have the graphic right here. The guy who they're going to be going against, Coleman Shelton. I mean, he's 34 pressures allowed. Like this guy in quarterbacks like Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff, they
yeah,
hate pressure up the middle. They hate pressure up the middle because if you get pressure up the
yeah,
middle, they ain't Patrick Mahomes, they ain't Josh Allen, they ain't Jalen Hurts, they ain't getting out of there.
yeah. And it helps a lot having a lean back, even if he's not fully healthy. He's still an upgrade at player.
Yep.
Why is the why is the picture for my man on the left so small? Look like Aleem ate him or something, bro. But yeah, like it's somebody's little brother starting in at right guard or something.
Well, he is like a little brother. I mean, like Aleem is huge compared to him.
Yeah,
I think Aleem got like what is it? Aleem got like 40 pounds on this boy.
yeah. Levi. I think a big reason he hasn't played as much. In order to be a consistent every down D tackle in this offense, I mean in this defense, they want you to be a much better player against the run.
Yep.
And he can't help it. I mean, that's not really what he is. Like going back to Washington, he was 6'2", 285 pounds. He
Yeah.
was a bull in the china shop.
Well,
Interior pass
I
rush.
mean,
That's what he is.
if you're gonna be honest, like I always tell people when they're drafting these players from like Washington or like a Big 12 school or
They
something like that.
haven't panned out. A lot of those Washington players haven't panned out
Well,
either.
number one, you're drafting a guy based on his pass rush ability because that's all they do in the Pac-12 and the Big 12. And like if you're drafting a guy like Levi Onwuzurike, you got to understand that like there's going to be an acclimation period for him becoming a run stop defensive tackle. I mean, a guy like Lee McNeil, right? He went to North Carolina State. He played in the ACC, and the ACC they run the ball a lot. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? It's like the AC, it's like the SEC and the Big Ten. Like if you're a defensive tackle in the SEC and the Big Ten, you better hold your horses. Like you're gonna have to stop the run. Like
yeah.
don't
You
no
out
matter.
there to hold water all day.
Yeah, and
That's what you out there to do.
you got guys in the Pac-12 and the Big 12. They're just like, all right, bro, we're just rushing the passer all game. It's 7-on-7 basically. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right, so I got my parlay of the day. I know people like this, but I got the Lions money line. I got
Mm.
Stafford 250, Goff 250, Kyron Williams under 82.5 yards. So that's under 82 and a half. Gibbs 40, Montgomery 40, Amon Brown over 87 and a half. I'm around 6 receptions, and the Lions over 27 and a half points. $20 is going to win you $406. So if you
Mm.
want that, that's a good parlay. I think that'll be pretty. I'm going to have a couple more because I'll figure something out. But I think this game is going to come down to St. Brown. I really want to put a JMO parlay in because I think JMO is going to have a big day. But I think if you're going to be safe, that's what you want to do. But that's what I think.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of money out there to be made.
Yeah,
At least for people who are betting on the Lions in this game. I expect a major offensive explosion from this team, man.
I think if you want to go risky, you go 60 yards for Montgomery, 50 yards for Gibbs, maybe JMO 40 yards because I think he can get that easily if he hits a deep shot. And then if Laporta is active, that's someone that you got to look towards too. Maybe you get like 25 yards. See what I'm saying? Or
Yeah.
maybe under because I don't know if he's going to be healthy enough, but we'll see how it goes. But is
JMO
it
rushing yards.
JMO rushing yards? I wonder how much that'd be. That'd be crazy.
I'm just saying, this is, if you look at the Rams defensively, this is a linebacking core and a secondary that can be taken advantage of.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I think a guy like DPJ too. I think he could have a big
Yeah.
game too.
Yeah.
I know we were talking about this earlier, but like I think that the timing and the rhythm. I think eventually when you get to the playoffs, like you just gotta. I know Goff is a kind of timing and rhythm kind of guy, but at this point in the season, like you just got to go to your players. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He hasn't played enough with Green. He hasn't played enough with DPJ. He has no Cleve Raymond no more for this game. So he's got to go to certain other people, and I'm pretty sure Goff can do that. It's not going to be as hard as we think it is going to be, but I think he's going to have a lot of opportunities to go to Gibbs and Montgomery, and I just think this offense is going to take advantage of this Rams defense. That's what I think. So we'll end the podcast pretty much here, but is there any last closing thoughts you got? Well,
Um, this has been a long time coming, man. Um, Congratulations to Lions fans. It's great to be able to do Lions content that's positive.
yep.
I can't imagine the people who had YouTube channels or Facebook channels or whatever streaming platforms and spent the last 10 plus years doing Lions content, like especially like during the Matt Millen era, the Bob Quinn era. You guys deserve this, man. We put up with a lot.
Martin
I think
Mayhew.
I feel comfortable saying that we finally have a quality GM, a
Yep.
quality head coach. Does he have his flaws? Yes, he does. But we need to understand that this guy has taken us from 3-13-1 to 9-8 to 12 wins this year. This team was good enough, and with a few breaks, could have been a 14-win team if we being honest about it. But you have a quality football team here. They're young, they're growing, they have a lot of talent that started out kind of slippery this earlier this season, but they did what we asked them to do. They're playing their best football heading into the playoffs. I remember at the beginning of the season with the Jameer Gibbs against Seattle and Jameer Gibbs against Atlanta, and people were wondering whether or not Jameer was a wasted pick, whether or not Jack Campbell was a bust. These guys now play major roles in us having a potential playoff run, right along with Sam Laporta, who's going to go out there and gut it out, looks like. And I just want fans to understand that, man, it's okay to be confident in your football team. You don't have to be over pessimistic. And it seems like a lot of Lions fans feel guilty for saying that this team is good, or they feel guilty for saying they're going to beat the Rams. You don't have to feel that way. This is a quality football team, man. Now, you can feel the way you want to feel about the quarterback position. That's neither here nor there. But this team has probably been the most consistent team in the NFC all season. This team never lost two straight, let alone three straight, like the 49ers did. Um, Purdy had a streak of bad games, then had another streak of bad games, and people still put him in the MVP conversation. Now, do I think we're better than the 49ers overall? Humming? No, probably not. But at the end of the day, they finished with the same record as us. We're here. We won our marathon. We got there at the 12-5. We didn't trail off the way the Eagles did. We didn't implode the way the Eagles did. So I think it's all about matchups. This team has a run in them, I believe. We were never destined to play the Eagles and 49ers at any given time anyway, I don't believe. This team has the opportunity, if you look at, like I said, if the Packers beat Dallas, which is possible, and Tampa beats Philly, which most people think Tampa will take down Philly, this is a team that could possibly have back-to-back home playoff games. So, like I said, enjoy the game tonight, man, and get ready for a hell of a game. I expect this crowd to be raucous, and it's going to be difficult. It's going to be real difficult, I think, for this Ram team to come in here and get a victory tonight. I got 36-24.
Muted, muted.
Yeah.
I don't know what I think it did on that thing, but I know people are asking, will this be podcasted on the podcast platforms of Spotify and Apple? Yes, it will. So if you're going to the game, I got a little bit of word of advice for you. If you're going to the game, you got to be loud while they're in the huddle. Number one. Number two, be loud when they're kicking field goals because their field goal team absolutely sucks. They brought back Brett Maher, and we all know who Brett Maher is, missing extra points all the time. And in this kind of game, extra points will matter. So if they miss one extra point, boom, that could be the kind of that opens the floodgates. You know what I'm saying? Because then you're going to be chasing that extra point the next time you get that touchdown. So that's what I think the Lions fans need to, when they're listening to this, as a podcast, it's going to be available after this live feed. It'll be available. So when you're talking about being loud, be loud on those certain times, and then this is something that you've earned. I mean, I think that I've been doing this for 10 years now. Yeah, 10 years because it's 10-year anniversary. I've seen Martin Mayhew. I've seen Bob Quinn. I've seen total countless years of fertility where the team was built half-ass, if we're going to be honest. I mean, all those years we talked about the 2014 Lions with the Sue and the Fairley, that was still a half-ass team, if we're going to be honest, because they couldn't defend the pass at all, and they gave up big plays all the time, especially Cassius Vaughn, dumbass.
Hey, but hold on now. Remember this. We had playmakers.
We did.
Glover Quinn and Dre Bly made a ton of plays. They made up for a lot.
Yeah.
We were opportunistic. We
Darius
were
Slay
damn
and
sure of that.
Darius Slay and Glover Quinn, yeah. And they're going to be in the house today. I heard
Oh yeah.
Glover Quinn's going to be there. I heard
Calvin there.
Calvin's going to be there. You know
I'm
who
pretty
else
sure.
is going to be
Yeah.
there? Snacks. I never expected Snacks to come back to Detroit, but guess what? Bob Quinn ain't here. Matt Patricia ain't here. You got a coach that everyone absolutely freaking adores. You're at home for the first time in Ford Field history with a playoff game. Like this is a total chance for you to take advantage. I don't care what the national media says because a lot of the national media is stupid anyways because they don't even know that the Lions play at the Ford Field. I got Michael Irvin saying they still play at the Silverdome, bro.
Hey,
The Silverdome's gone, bro.
they say what? The Lions have a good rushing attack. Let me
Whoa.
look that up.
He's like, the Silverdome's gonna be loud. It's like, bro, the Silverdome's been dead and gone for like probably 10 years, 20 years now. You know what I'm saying? It turned into like one of those what are those called? Those atriums where all
Yeah.
the freaking grass grows and everything. It's not the same. So all I gotta tell people is enjoy the night, have fun. You've earned this. You've gone through a lot of bullshit. I know. You know. Walt knows. Everyone knows that's in Detroit. Like you finally got like what Walt said. You finally got a general manager who does it the right way. You make the right picks. You've got picks that you made in the sixth round that are paying dividends for you, even undrafted free agents. Like I
When's the
think,
last time we seen the Lions team get better every year? Like even like the Stafford Lions would be good one year and then turn around and be 4-12 or whatever and this and that. And you mentioned how this team was built. We've always seen explosive offensive line teams. Going back to when they had Kramer and they had Scott Mitchell and Herman Moore and
right,
Perriman and Johnny Morton and David Sloan and we've always seen explosive Lions football teams. Jermaine Crowell. Like
yep.
they've always drafted wide receivers well as well. But
But they,
I thought Schwartz tried to take the right approach. Now ultimately Schwartz is just better as a coordinator than he is as a head
yep,
coach, but I think we got to give Schwartz some credit because Schwartz took over that 0-16 team. He drafted Stafford number one overall. He didn't have him his first 2 years. Now, once Stafford got healthy, he hit a stride year three. Um, that was a disappointment. I thought that heading into the following season, after that team lost to the Saints, we still saw Stafford perform well. Calvin had 200 yards. The expectations for that Lions team was super high, man. And for them to kind of let us down the way they did was heartbreaking, I thought. And then things kind of fell off after that. Things were dysfunctional around Stafford the whole time he was here.
yeah,
So I don't fault him the way I do. I mean the way I think a lot of people do. But it took us sacrificing Stafford for us to get a competent organization because if Stafford never would have left, we wouldn't have what we have right now.
no, because we wouldn't have Melifonwu, we wouldn't have JMO, we wouldn't have Laporta, Gibbs. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what
I
made
think
this
both
trade.
can be right. I think things worked out for Stafford and things worked out for us. We have a competent organization now.
Yeah, yeah. I think the same thing. I mean, well, there's one game I do blame Stafford for, and I will never stop blaming Stafford for. Was a Cowboy game because I felt like that third quarter that he went in the hole, like he just. That's the kind of Stafford that I'm kind of
Was
looking
that
forward
him
to.
or Caldwell? I thought it was a collective blaming because those dudes dropped like four passes that game too.
Well,
Calvin even had to drop on that final drive.
there's something that Goff has that I think Stafford never had, and it's just this dog mentality. You know what I'm saying? Like it. I think Goff developed it over that course of that 3-13 season. Where like, look, dude, like I'm not. I have to change the way I'm thinking. Like, some quarterbacks like Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, like when they are when they know that things aren't going their way, they just start forcing it. Like they would say, we're gonna start. I'm gonna win this game by myself, right? Even Jalen Hurts, like Jalen Hurts does the same thing. Like he'd be like, there's games where he's not playing the well and or his team's not playing well and he just starts making plays out of nowhere and you're like, wow. Like that's all I'm talking about. Like Matthew Stafford, the one thing I had a problem with Matthew Stafford was he'd make every cute play that you think, the sidearms and all that stuff. But when it came down to you needing a first down, he didn't do it. He just didn't do it. And it took for him to have an all-star LA Rams team for them to get to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. I mean, like, what team wouldn't win with the Super Bowl like that? Jalen Ramsey, Von Miller, Aaron Donald, Cooper Cup, Odell
I think
Beckham.
Stafford, dog, and then the the killer instinct to really go for it. I think Stafford has it in him. I had it in him mainly because he has the arm talent
Yeah.
and he has the gall. And
I mean,
in a lot of cases, that'll if you go back, you watch a lot of Ram film with Stafford. It looks like a lot of Lion film, but Stafford just has the confidence to just. And this is what not necessarily bothers me about Stafford now. And I think this is also something people have to look out for. Stafford doesn't always take the easy stuff.
no.
He'll pass up easy, ignorant. He'll just settle on ignorant. He'll take this throw that he has no business making. He'll make it. He'll make three straight. And then where do most of his pick sixes come from? A lot of that cover two outside zone and guys breaking. Why do you think the Rams took a lot of that out of the playbook with him?
Yeah, that's a good point.
They
That's
know what
good.
he does well and what he doesn't do well. And all of those long developing routes with a long lumbering Puka Nakua out there and Cooper Cup, he's been injured the last couple of years. He's not the same guy. I'm not buying with this fear that people are trying to sell
No,
at all. Now, do I respect the Rams? Of course I do.
of course, yeah.
But I respect my team as well. And I'm just not seeing it in the matchup. To me, everything points towards the Rams losing this game.
Yep. And I look at it like this. I don't know if you've realized this. Well, I know a lot of people in the national media haven't because they're kind of stupid, anyways. But, but there's like Aaron Glenn against Stafford. I don't. If you go back over those years where Aaron Glenn was a secondary coach at New Orleans, his worst games came against the New Orleans Saints. There was one game I think in particular where it was probably his worst game of his career. And then he had that one Monday Night Football game where they kind of passed all over and like Marshawn Lattimore was hurt, whatever, and they won that Monday Night Football game. Like that was a game that they won, but over the course, he has not done good against Saints defense. I'm pretty sure Aaron Glenn knows how to neutralize Stafford in terms of what he doesn't like and what he likes. You know what I'm saying? That's one thing I do like about Aaron Glenn. I know a lot of people, even my, Tyler, he'll say, "Oh, Aaron Glenn doesn't adjust." Bro, Aaron Glenn's been adjusting this whole year. The problem is he hasn't had the dogs to adjust. You know what I'm saying? When Cameron Sutton's struggling, Jerry Jacobs is struggling, those are your two corners that you're going with. I'm gonna tell you it's not gonna end up good for your defensive coordinator. I mean, that's just the way it is. But the fact of the matter is this: he's adjusted really, really well, especially in the last 6 weeks. They blitz more, they get more pressure on the quarterback, and if there's a quarterback that doesn't like blitz, it's Matthew Stafford. Like Matthew Stafford doesn't like the
Yeah.
blitz.
Yeah. And I think, people are kind of overselling how quote unquote hot Stafford has been the second half of the season. This is a dude who still had worse stats than Goff.
Yeah,
Dude had 24 and 11.
yeah,
Now, I do give the Rams credit. I think McVay has done a hell of a coaching job with this team, considering the way Stafford's been nicked up throughout the season. Um, the defensive limitations, as you and I mentioned, the offensive line limitations they've had. So for him to win 10 games with this roster, I think is incredible.
right.
Incredible.
Yeah, I think
But
even
uh,
the Rams people are saying if they can get to 500, that was a win. But I mean, I just look at it like this: like you got to 500, you got above 500, you caught some breaks along the lines with the later half of your schedule. And I just think that with the way that Stafford's been playing all year long, I mean, there's games where he's played very, very good, and there's games where he's played very, very like
bad.
pedestrian. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like I look at some of these games, like he's got against the Giants. I expect you to throw for 300 yards. I expect you to throw for 300 yards against the New Orleans Saints because their pass defense with no Lattimore is just nothing. But when you struggle against the Washington Commanders, who we all know suck as a pass defense, and you
And pass rush.
yeah, and then you have a good game kind of with the Baltimore Ravens, but 23 for 41, that ain't that great. I mean, that's a 56 completion percentage. You know what I'm saying? But when he went against these top echelon teams like Dallas, 162 yards passing, Seattle, which is not a top echelon team, but they held him to 190 yards passing. Pittsburgh, they don't have a good pass defense, 231 yards passing. I mean, like, there's games where he has not played as well, and those games tie back to his run game. So I mean, we've been talking about it. If there's any team that's able to stop the Rams, it's the Detroit Lions because they can stop the run.
Well, the Steelers were also able to create pressure.
Yeah. Well,
They got to him.
you got to get pressure on Stafford. That's number one.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, the only team I think that didn't get pressure on him was it the Seahawks because they didn't get a sack in that game, so that was crazy. But all right, man, it was great having you on the podcast, and we'll have to do it again because this was great. But yeah, I just think that this game is going to come down to special teams, as you see, like 31st in the NFL. They struggle in special teams. They're giving up the worst in the NFL average per return. If I'm looking at this in particular, I think that whoever's is handling the punt return today, I think it's going to be TPJ. But
I want
maybe,
Antoine Green back there.
man, you know what? I heard someone say put Jameson back there, and I could tell you something. If Dan Campbell and Dave Phipp want to put a real wrinkle in the game,
That place will erupt if Jameson goes back there to return the punt.
can you imagine, man? They're gonna be like, oh man, it's gonna be great. But enjoy the time. I think the Lions are gonna win too. I'm thinking like 34-24 kind of thing. Because I think I think they're gonna miss a field goal. I mean, a extra point at some point. They're gonna be chasing points, and I think that's gonna really tailspin this game. And I think the Lions are gonna get a punt return that they don't expect. It's gonna put them in plus territory. And I think that this run game is gonna run on the Rams. So I like it, and it's been a good podcast, man. I was so happy to have you on,
Definitely.
and if you guys were you tune in halfway through the episode, we will put this on the Apple, Spotify. I'll put this on the Lions page, and then you could listen to it before the game. We got a couple hours before the game, and there's no 1 o'clock game because Buffalo's getting snowed out right now. So we'll see you guys. We'll see you guys in the next podcast at the Detroit Lions News Podcast. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next podcast, hopefully after a win.